Credibility of a witness is always an issue.
Mr. Chairman, please,
have you Mr. Chairman, this is intolerable harassment of the witness.
What's wrong with that? You need your medication.
FBI agent Strzok was removed from special counsel Robert Mueller's team shortly after Mueller found out about negative text messages he sent about then-candidate Donald Trump.
Of the approximately 50,000 text messages that I've seen with your personal beliefs like F Trump, stop Trump, impeach Trump, go ahead and confirm on the record that none of that occurred on an official FBI device or on official FBI time. Go ahead and do that.
Sir, no, they did. Many of them did.
Oh, they did.
Chairman Trey Gowdy got testy with Strzok regarding a text where Strzok vowed to stop candidate Trump from becoming president.
What I can tell you is that text in no way suggested that I or the FBI would take any action to influence the candidacy of Agent Strzok.
President Trump and his supporters say the text between Strzok and former FBI lawyer Lisa Page show that the Mueller probe is biased against Mr. Trump. Others say this was just smoke and mirrors.
This is a stupid and ridiculous hearing.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
The Justice Department is reopening the investigation into the death of Emmett Till over 60 years later. In a report to Congress, the department said it received new information on the case. Till was 14 years old when he was lynched in Mississippi in 1955. His death became a major part of the early civil rights movement when his mother left his casket open so the public see his mutilated body. Till was accused of whistling at a white woman. Last year, an interview was made public where she admits to lying about Till's actions. 2 men were charged in Till's death, but they were acquitted.
Funding for Obamacare advertising has been cut once again.
Democrats say this is the latest attempt by the administration to unravel Obamacare. Alexandra Limon has more on what the cuts are and why.
The president has eliminated 80% of funds.
This week, the Trump administration dealt another round of funding cuts to Obamacare. Money that was previously used to help people sign up for coverage will now be used for a different purpose.
Is tantamount to federal funding fraud.
Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon says to qualify for that grant money now, nonprofits that help people enroll will have to encourage people to purchase short-term health insurance plans.
They're going to give money to groups that say, hey, we'll help you unsuspecting consumers go buy these junk insurance policies.
These plans don't cover anything, right? They don't cover essential health benefits. They don't guarantee coverage for pre-existing medical conditions.
However, the Trump administration says people already know about Obamacare, so why spend the money on outreach? And companies that sell the short-term health insurance plans say they're good and inexpensive.
We don't feel that short-term medical competes with ACA in any way.
Short-term health insurance plans used to be limited to 3 months of coverage, but because of a rule change under the Trump administration, people can now buy them for up to a year. Obamacare supporters say the rule change will take healthy people out of the healthcare exchanges, and it's designed to do what Congress couldn't: kill Obamacare. In Washington, Alexandra Limon.
Continuing coverage this morning on a settlement that's been reached in a civil lawsuit against 2 developers in the Northeast Kingdom.
Vermont State Police say the pair is accused of defrauding the state's immigration investor program. Local 22 Spencer Conlon reports from Newport.
It's a scandal that rocked Vermont's Northeast Kingdom in 2016.
The greatest harm that this scandal has inflicted on our state is the loss of public trust in state government.
Vermont Attorney General T.J. Donovan announcing a settlement Thursday in Newport with Ariel Quiros, the former owner of Jay Peak Resort. Quiros will surrender 5 properties he owns in Vermont to the state, worth about $2 million.
We hope that by closing this chapter today, by getting some money to this great city, that it will continue its work towards a brighter future, to revitalizing this city, to revitalizing the kingdom, and restoring the harm done to so many community members.
In addition to the settlement with Quiros, Donovan says Bill Stenger, the former CEO of Jay Peak, will also pay $100,000 to the state over the next 4 years. Both men are accused of misusing at least $200 million raised from foreign investors who were promised a path to citizenship in the United States in return.
We didn't just curl up and hide. We decided to roll up our sleeves and get right to work, to start planning for a future of Newport without EB5.
State officials say the money will fund economic development projects in Newport and other areas across the Northeast Kingdom. The settlement will also allow now for the state auditor to review the state's role.
To address and answer the outstanding question that Vermonters are curious about and have a right to know, how did we get here? And furthermore, what lessons can we take away from it?
Spencer Conlon, Local 22 News, Newport.
The announcement comes just days after the federal government ordered the Vermont Regional Center to close. The state will appeal as it is in favor of a wind-down approach.
An update this morning on the former Royalton police officer John Breaux. He'll be behind bars in federal court for 6 months. He pleads guilty in March to stealing bags of heroin and prescription pills out of evidence lockers to give to his girlfriend, an addict. His defense attorney, Robert Cadams, says he deals with a lot of insecurity issues and codependence, which leads him to commit the crimes. Assistant U.S. Attorney William Darrow said behavior like this by an officer invites public cynicism and makes a fool out of the whole legal system.
I think that anytime there's a breach of trust like this, that there's going to be a response. And John understood that. He understood that from the beginning, and he accepts responsibility for what he did.
Breaux begins his 6-month sentence when he self-surrenders on August 21st. His prison sentence will be followed by 1 year of supervised release.
State prosecution is asking a judge to hold a Vermont man accused of second-degree murder in jail pending trial. The request comes after the state presented audio recordings during a court hearing. The videos were friends of the victim, Jared Streeter and Joshua Granger. Police say Streeter fell to his death on a bridge after an altercation between him and Granger. The hearing will last until the end of the month.
A developing story this morning. Firefighters in Altona, New York are working with forest rangers to continue putting out a forest fire near Flat Rock. 18 departments were working to put it out overnight, and they say it's about 100 acres wide. This is a picture sent to us showing a very smoky sunset over Lake Champlain. The fire all began around 1 yesterday afternoon. The plan of attack for today includes multiple helicopters for water drops and observation. Also multiple fire departments, including from Clinton and Franklin counties. Quebec helped out yesterday, too. One viewer tells us smoke was visible as far away as Saranac Lake yesterday. Officials do assure us, though, no nearby properties have been affected.
After a South Royalton teen went missing back in January, family and friends have gathered to mourn his loss.
Austin Colson's body wasn't discovered until May 23rd, when officials found it in Norwich. People at a vigil had one clear message: justice for Austin. Local 22's Devin Bates was at the vigil. He has more from family and friends.
Dozens of people close to Austin gathered in White River Junction with signs that point to a common theme. They want justice. There was a sense of frustration over how long it's been since they've heard any updates in the case. The vigil was an opportunity for friends and family to remember the young man they all loved. It was also clear they were growing restless.
And we want to see somebody behind bars. We want somebody to pay for their mistakes. Austin paid the ultimate price. He is not here, and he deserves that justice.
Many of the posters people brought to the vigil demanded justice come quick, emphasizing the damage Colson's death has caused in the family. It's been 6 long months as Austin's body wasn't discovered until May. Thursday's vigil was also an opportunity for people to remember his life.
I think he would have been an asset to this community. He loved his hometown. He wanted to be in that area. And I feel that people don't hear those things about him. But he was. He was a loving person, and he was a good person.
After people spoke at the microphone, there was a moment of silence for Austin as people stood with their lit candles. Devin Bates, Local 22 News.
Police say Richard Whitcomb is a person of interest in the death of Colson, who died from a gunshot wound to the head. Vermont authorities are continuing the investigation.
A Connecticut man is dead following a crash in Marlboro, Vermont. 88-year-old Alfred Wolfson of Stamford was driving west on Route 9 when he crossed the center line and collided with a dump truck parked in the breakdown lane. Wolfson was transported to Dartmouth-Hitchcock Medical Center, where he died from internal injuries. 2 workers were eating lunch in the dump truck when this happened. They have since been released. The crash is still under investigation.
Gorgeous day yesterday, I have to say.
Gorgeous, but dry again.
It was.
We do need some rain. We're going to find a few showers tomorrow, but it's not until Tuesday, really, that we get a real good soaking. So that means the drought conditions, unfortunately, are going to keep on getting worse. So let's start there. We do now have a moderate drought for portions of the Adirondacks, including Essex County, New York, right into central and southern Vermont, as well as central New Hampshire. And although we have a surplus of rainfall, going back to April 1st in Burlington and Newport, especially in Newport, it has been wet this spring and summer. We are dry elsewhere and extremely dry. We have a 3.5 or so inch deficit in rain in Bennington and Keene, almost 3-inch deficit in Rutland. So again, our next big soaker, it's on the way, but not until Tuesday. Meanwhile, Lake Champlain has dropped 5 feet from the beginning of May. It's normal, of course, for the lake level to drop 2 or 3 feet during the summer, but already 5 feet. Of course, we started, though, with an impressive 100 feet and all of that flooding in May. Coming up in your forecast, you know that rain's on the horizon. Next week, it's coming, but you may get a couple of showers tomorrow, too. So if you have outdoor plans for Saturday, you want to stick with us to the other side of the break.
And the Lake Monsters turn their luck around. Lauren Walsh tells us how in your morning sports update.
You're watching Local 22 News this morning. Local news that matters.
It is 5:15, and temperatures are mainly in the 50s, so we have dropped to 41 in Saranac Lake, and we're holding steady at 63 in Montreal. Station in Plattsburgh offline this morning. Hopefully it comes back on at some point, but it's 58 degrees in Burlington, 55 in Middlebury, 53 in St. Jay, 55 in Lebanon, so I can all but guarantee Plattsburgh's also sitting in the 50s this morning. We're moving to the 80s this afternoon, though. Surface high pressure slides off to the east and around it. Now we're pulling air up from the south, so we're going to climb to the mid-80s. There's a cold front on the way for Saturday, but it really fizzles out as it gets here, so it is definitely not having an impact on temperatures for the most part. It'll be a little cooler east of the Greens, but it will bring more cloud cover and an isolated shower. Speaking of which, Future Tracker does try to spin up a couple of sprinkles throughout New Hampshire today, but there's a lot of dry air in place at the low level, so I find that hard to believe. I don't necessarily want to grab onto that. Maybe see 1 or 2 sprinkles, especially maybe if you're hiking in the White Mountains today. That'd be about it. Otherwise, it's mostly sunny with occasional clouds floating through the sky, a lot like yesterday. Top temperatures, low to mid 80s for you, so a few degrees warmer than yesterday. We'll be approaching the upper 80s in broad valleys. That is where we end up on Sunday. So the cold front, as I said, not playing a big role in our temperature forecast for the weekend. Does bring more clouds overhead tomorrow. You won't find as much blue sky for Saturday, and a couple of showers, but it's hardly a washout of a day. Remember, we're fighting all that dry air in the low levels. So scattered showers, yes. Isolated thunderstorm, possible. Maybe even an isolated thunderstorm for Sunday, but Sunday we clear out. Those clouds should be leaving us during the morning in favor of some more sunshine. Tonight we drop to the upper 50s in eastern Vermont to New Hampshire, 60s elsewhere, so it is a milder night. We're then, of course, flirting with 90s Sunday and getting above 90 on Monday with a lot of humidity. But we don't quite make the heat wave again because of a stronger cold front that moves through on Tuesday, bringing widespread rainfall totals of around an inch, maybe even more. That system is moving through the Pacific Northwest now, so as it gets closer in the coming days, we'll have a better idea of how it plays out. But we do know it will drop temperatures back down to the seasonable low 80s. Your full forecast is up on our website, mychamplainvalley.com. Of course, everything you need to know is under the Weather tab.
5:17 this morning. Here are your Friday morning headlines. With nurses on strike and replacements filling in, patients are feeling uncertain.
Ashley Dustin and her 9-year-old daughter Clara came from Brushton, New York to seek UVM care. Clara has been in the pediatric intensive care unit since June 25th. Since day one, she has had the same nurses aiding her every need. Now there's not a familiar face to be seen. Dustin, her mom, says she hopes the nurses get what they're asking for. After 3 million gallons of storm and wastewater spilled into Lake Champlain, officials are investigating what went wrong at the treatment facility and if staffing was an issue. Chapin Spencer is Burlington's Department of Public Works director. He says the plant was designed to run without a staff. He never questioned its dependability. Now realizing the plant is reaching its end, a plan to prevent these releases in the future has begun.
A Democratic candidate for Vermont Governor Brenda Siegel released her plan to combat the opioid epidemic. Her main pillars include reducing harm, treatment on demand, recovery and prevention, dual diagnosis support, and criminal justice reform. Siegel said both her nephew and brother died from a heroin overdose, giving her a first-hand look at this crisis. She says it's time to lead with love and compassion, not stigma and hate.
New jobs coming to Plattsburgh thanks to a new project at the airport.
We'll tell you what the plan entails next.
Notice something missing? As blood donations decrease, blood of all types disappears from hospital shelves. Help the Red Cross fill in the missing types. Please donate today. local news that matters on Local 22 News.
In Consumer Matters this morning, banning plastic straws may be good for the environment, but for some it's become a burden.
People with disabilities are raising concerns on growing efforts to ban those types of straws. Many need them to drink, and alternatives don't work as well. Disability rights groups worry if the ban continues, it will be another inconvenience they have to face. This comes after companies such as Starbucks and American Airlines say they're eliminating the plastic straws. Starbucks has stated that they will work with the disabled community to help meet its needs. Twitter users, we're talking to you. Don't be surprised if your number of Twitter followers soon plummets.
Right, the social media site is purging tens of millions of suspicious accounts. While it's estimated most people will only lose about 4 followers, larger accounts should expect a more significant drop. Officials say this is part of an effort to make Twitter a, quote, more trusted service for public conversation. That includes fighting trolls and disinformation. An update from Papa John's this morning. They have lost their founder.
Yeah, the founder has stepped down as chairman of the pizza company. Schnatter admitted to using the N-word in a conference call. It was part of an exercise meant to prevent PR problems. He had already stepped down as CEO after controversially blaming low pizza sales on NFL anthem protests. The CEO, former now, had been the face of the company since he founded it in 1984. He remains its largest shareholder. Papa John's says a new chairman will soon be appointed. Stick around for weather. It's up next.
You're watching Local 22 News this morning. Local news that matters to Northern New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. Now, meteorologist Amanda Tebow with your Sky Tracker forecast.
5:25 this morning, we told you about the Altona fire a few minutes ago, and the smoke from that fire was clearly visible yesterday on the horizon, but we're also picking up on some smoke from wildfires in Canada. And although we have a very light and variable wind at the surface today, you're actually looking at the wind direction from about 700 millibars in the atmosphere. So that's close to about 300 meters, maybe like 10,000 feet, 9,000, 10,000 feet, and that is where we're pulling in that smoke, and it's giving the sky a bit of a hazy appearance. So again, that's the case today because surface high pressure is sliding off to the east, but the ridge at that level of the atmosphere is very much in place and stagnant. So a little hazy today, especially across New York, but otherwise we are mostly sunny with some increasing cloud cover towards this afternoon and this evening. Top temperatures will be in the mid-80s. Remember, near the surface where we are, not 700 millibars up, but where we are, we've got a light and variable wind. Sunset is at 8:36. 6, and there will be more clouds around by that point, but any showers should hold off until daybreak Saturday.
Now, Local 22 Sports with Lauren Walsh.
Good morning, I'm Lauren Walsh. Gutterson Fieldhouse is gearing up to welcome some big-name teams next season. UVM Women's Hockey releasing its 2018-19 schedule yesterday with a handful of reasons to be excited for Catamount hockey. Vermont opens the season at home on October 6th against UConn in Burlington. The Cats then take on their usual string of Hockey East teams, and then the fun comes in November when UVM hosts Syracuse, St. Lawrence, and 2016 national champ Minnesota for the Windjammer Classic at Gutterson. The Catamounts will also host Boston College and Northeastern, both of whom made it to the quarterfinals of last year's NCAA tournament. The Lake Monsters have turned their 4-game losing streak into a 2-game winning streak. Vermont blanked the State College Spikes 3-0 on Wednesday for their 3rd shutout of the season. Game 2 of the series last night, and Vermont starts the scoring again. Here in the 2nd inning, Jose Rivas gets all over this pitch and sends it over the left field wall. Rivas tallies a 2-run round trip for his first home run of the season. The Lake Monsters lead there, but not for long. Bottom of the inning, bases loaded, Nick Dunn crushes one to deep center. That'll drop for a 2 RBI double, and the Spikes tie it up. The very next batter, Edwin Figuera, goes opposite field, a lined single to right. 2 more Spikes come home. State College now on top 4-2. Skipping ahead to the 5th inning, Spikes on top 6-3. Bases juiced as Jonah Bride creates some offense and then some. He hits a line drive to center. Bases start to clear as 2 Monsters come home. Then a wild throw to the plate prompts a wild throw to third. That scores Alfonso Rivas and Bride for a bases-clearing 4-run play. Lake Monsters go up 7-6, but can't hold on. They lose late 10-9 to the Spikes. Taking a look at the division standings, these include last night's results. Tri-City jumps ahead of Vermont by 2 games with their win and the Monsters' loss. But the standings are tight with Connecticut and Lowell tied for 3rd, and they're not too far behind the Monsters. That'll do it here for sports. Have a great weekend.
Local news that matters on Local 22 News. Local 22 News starts now with your forecast first.
Good morning and happy Friday. Welcome to the almost weekend. I'm Sky Tracker meteorologist Amanda Tebow with your forecast first. Very fitting for a Friday. We have a serene sunrise early this morning. Clear skies. A few more clouds may arrive this afternoon in similar fashion to yesterday. And of course, we might get that same haze, especially in New York on the horizon due to a couple of fires burning, one in Altona, but also off in Canada. Your forecast does bring you some showers for Saturday, unfortunately, but it's not a washout. I'll explain why in just a couple of minutes. But first, Local 22 News this morning starts now.
Coming up, as the UVM nurses strike continues, patients worry about their own care. Hear from one mother as her child remains in the ICU.
Then preventing another sewage spill into Lake Champlain, this after the most recent one just this week. Why officials say it's time to take action.
And erasing the stigma of addiction, how one Democratic candidate is using her own tragedy to create change.
From WVNY, this is Local 22 News this morning.
Good morning, everyone. 5:31. Thanks for joining us on Local 22 News. I'm Polixeni Manjari.
I'm Megan Carpenter. As UVM nurses walk out, replacements are filling in, and this is creating some uncertainty for patients familiar with the nursing staff.
Local 22 Spencer Thomas spoke with the mother of a young patient.
As one UVM nurse leaves, another replacement nurse fills in, causing patients in their care to become more and more nervous.
I've got to say, when we got up this morning, it was stressful to hear that they were going on strike. I could tell that Clara was a little stressed about it because now it was going to be all new people.
Ashley Dustin's 9-year-old daughter Clara has been in the pediatric intensive care unit since June 25th. Since day one, she has had the same nurses aiding her every need, and now there's not a familiar face to be seen.
This has been a very traumatic event for her, causing a lot of anxiety, so having new people doesn't help. So it was stressful. It added a lot more stress to what we've already been through.
Chief Medical Officer at UVM says patient safety is their top priority.
I would reassure everyone that all the clinicians have their eyes on the patients and the finger on the pulse, and making sure that we communicate the status and the current state of our patients.
UVM officials say they fostered a culture of patient-centered family care, which empowers their patients and families to be knowledgeable of their medical care that will then help the new nurses.
That conversation and dialogue really has led to safer care in the end along the years since we've adopted that very patient and family-centered approach.
In the end, Dustin understands why her daughter's nurses left. Spencer Thomas, Local 22 News, Burlington.
Dustin says that without these nurses' care, she doesn't know if her daughter would have made it as far as she has. A statement from the hospital says there has been no significant issues with replacing these nurses, and all OR cases were completed.
With the strike happening, the UVM Medical Center is responding to the strike and its wage proposals from the nurses. Over a 3-year contract, RNs would receive an increase of more than $10,000. And advanced practice RNs would get a 6% raise to 25%. According to the hospital, outpatient nurses would be matched to the level of inpatient nurses, which would be an additional 10%. All nurses would get a benefits package that equals more than 30% of base pay.
In your local election headquarters, Democratic candidate for Vermont, Governor Brenda Siegel, released her plan to combat the opioid epidemic. The main pillars include reducing harm, treatment on demand, recovery and prevention, dual diagnosis support, and criminal justice reform. Siegel said both her nephew and brother died from a heroin overdose, providing her a first-hand look at this crisis.
I watched the system fail him time and time again. When he was young in treatment for mental illness and was abused there. When he sought treatment at Maple Leaf and they closed without warning and without placing their patients where they could continue their treatment. With the lack of harm reduction and adequate treatment throughout the state. And finally, within the criminal justice system.
Siegel also said Vermont should not be patting itself on the back with a slowed increase in heroin-related deaths, saying it is time to lead with love and compassion, not stigma and shame.
Turning to environmental matters this morning, with the question still being what went wrong at a wastewater facility in Burlington, officials are taking that question to heart.
Local 22's Haley Boulay has been following this story since May. Here's an update.
City officials are providing more clarification on the 58 minutes that partially treated storm and wastewater was released into Lake Champlain Tuesday night.
This plant is able and designed to run without staff during off-peak times.
Jabin Spencer, Burlington's Department of Public Works director, says the dependability of the automated wastewater treatment plant was the reason there was nobody at the plant that night.
For decades, this plant has operated without staffing, reliably and dependably. Until these last 2 equipment failures, there was no indication that this plant's equipment was reaching end of life.
Now the DPW has been put on notice to come up with a plan to reinvest in this critical infrastructure and prevent these releases from occurring.
With these 2 incidents, are redoubling our capital planning efforts as the mayor has directed us to bring a plan to the City Council December 1st.
2 employees responded to the plan and 1 worked remotely to fix the problem.
Within 15 minutes, staff was adjusting controls remotely to add disinfection.
Both were in contact with their supervisor during the incident and at the end of their shift.
The challenge in the failure was that the computer system was not receiving those directions and initiating the disinfection pump.
Regardless, folks are still concerned about the health of the lake with these latest spills.
It's just shameful and it's disheartening. This is Vermont. This is our prime place, the lake.
Worried about one of Vermont's most precious natural resources. In Burlington, Haley Boulay, Local 22 News.
Test results have come back below the EPA standard for E. coli. They say the warning signs at the affected locations will be removed. So, perfect timing.
Yeah.
Because today's going to be another beautiful day to hit the beach.
It is, yeah. We're moving to the 80s after starting in the 50s for the second morning in a row.
I felt that one. Oh my God.
Yeah, we are in the 50s across the board except for a couple of exceptions. A little cooler in Saranac Lake, a little warmer in Montreal. It is 63 in Montreal, 41 in Saranac Lake. Elsewhere, though, we are sitting at 55 in Rutland and Lebanon, 50 in Montpelier, 53 in St. Jay. It's also 50 in Newport, 58 degrees in Burlington. So a similar start this morning to yesterday. But coming up in your forecast, you'll see we end up just a little bit warmer this afternoon. And then we're talking increasing clouds and a few showers. Perfect timing, right, for Saturday. Wouldn't cancel your outdoor plans, so I'll tell you why next.
And a stellar deal has kids lining up. But is it too good to be true? Why Build-A-Bear Workshop is under the microscope.
You're watching Local 22 News this morning. Local news that matters. Now, meteorologist Amanda Thibault with your Sky Tracker forecast.
20 minutes until 6 o'clock, and we've got a lot to cover in your forecast. Starting with a beautiful day today. I mean, easily. We've got an upper level ridge and a surface high pressure ridge in place. That surface high sliding off to the east today, and so around it, southerly flow, bringing that big boost in temperatures today, pushing us to the higher half of the 80s. There is a cold front waiting in the wings, though, off over the Great Lakes, but just as many have done so far this summer, it fizzles out, loses a lot of its energy and steam by the time it gets here. So that's why I wouldn't cancel your outdoor plans for tomorrow, but no, there are going to be a couple of showers around. It's not going to be a dry day. Today is a dry day, except Future Tracker likes this little spattering of sprinkles over the higher terrain of New Hampshire. Is it possible you get a sprinkle? Yeah, but we have so much dry air in place at the surface that it's really unlikely. What is more likely, though, is that we get that increase in mid-level clouds just like we saw yesterday. And anytime those clouds pass over, it's a little natural shade, a little shade from Mother Nature, keeping us a degree or two below what it actually is in the 80s. So hopefully it makes it feel just a bit more comfortable to you. We're talking some bigger heat by Sunday and Monday. So that just shows you the front on Saturday does not have an impact on our temperatures. We are still cruising to about 90 after the cold front moves through. As the front is moving through Saturday, though, we've got highs in the low 80s for most, likely in the 70s in eastern Vermont, but more cloud cover than you'd probably like to see on a Saturday. And a couple of showers, an isolated thunderstorm can't be ruled out. Even as we clear up into Sunday, I still wouldn't rule out an isolated storm there either, though Sunday you're more likely to break out the sunglasses and the sunscreen and enjoy a hot day, hopefully from the comfort of a river or the lake. Now tonight, temperatures drop to the 50s in eastern Vermont to New Hampshire, 60s elsewhere. We have a whole bunch of very uncomfortable, muggy sleeping nights ahead of us. So if you do get down to the 50s tonight, it's probably your last time. We're talking overnight lows in the 60s to even 70s until our next cold front gets here. That's on Tuesday. You may have heard by now we've got a pretty good soaking that we're keeping our fingers crossed stays in the forecast for Tuesday. It looks pretty likely. Expecting widespread rainfall totals of at least an inch, which we need desperately, but in a lot of areas we have 3.5 inch rainfall deficit so far going back to April 1st. So not quite drought busting for everybody, but it is going to help. And it's also going to help get rid of that heat and humidity from Sunday and Monday, avoiding the heat wave. Your full forecast is up on our website, of course, mychamplainvalley.com. Under the weather tab is where you find that recap.
In Community Matters this morning, a new project is coming to Winooski. The city's first ever parklet project will be happening on Main Street. Parklets are public seating platforms that convert curbside parking spaces into pedestrian-friendly features. Now, the goal of the project is to encourage livability, walkability, and of course, wellness. The parklets will be funded by a $3,000 grant awarded by the AARP in March.
A major expansion to Plattsburgh International Airport should create some new jobs for the Lake City. Governor Andrew Cuomo announced Vaporstone Rail Systems will invest nearly $2.5 million in machinery, relocations, and employee training. This builds on the $38 million commitment to transform PBG into a modern transportation and economic development hub. The company plans to create 52 new jobs in the town.
In business matters, hundreds of people lined up outside Build-A-Bear workshop for what they call an amazing deal.
Others, though, were having a hard time believing it was actually too good to be true. Take a listen.
Oh, it's crazy. It's definitely crazy.
Very crazy indeed.
I think it's a little chaotic.
Yeah. More than 800 people lining up to Build-A-Bear.
It's crazy long. I wonder if they'll even have enough for everybody out here. It was similar to Black Friday for a bear.
And there's no catch. Whatever your child's age, that's how much you pay for a new furry friend.
How old are you?
7, 9.
He is 1.5, so $1.50.
A great deal and well worth the wait for many families.
Actually lets the kids that can't afford it on a normal basis come in and actually pay a reasonable price for an animal that they would want. We're a single family income, so for us it's a special day. Obviously, it gets customers out. We're all here. We all want to pay cheaper prices.
While most didn't mind standing in line for hours,
so we feel as long as we keep trucking along, we'll be okay.
Others weren't buying it.
Looking at that crazy line, I've got the little kids, and it's not right for them to have to wait, 2 to 3 hours just to get a bear.
Build-A-Bear offering coupons to families that just couldn't wait all day.
And my daughter's upset that we're not going to get a bear today, but I told her we'll get one in a week or so. Same thing.
I guess it's real. Who knew?
For some.
I know, for some, yeah. A magazine cover featuring a famous young woman is causing some controversy, not for the photo, but for the caption.
David Daniel tells us more in today's Hollywood Minute.
Forbes magazine estimates Kylie Jenner is worth $900 million from her cosmetics company, endorsements, and reality TV gigs. So the financial mag featured her on its cover, predicting she'll be the youngest ever self-made billionaire. That's caused a backlash, with critics noting it helped to be born into the wealthy and famous Kardashian-Jenner family. A spokeswoman for Forbes acknowledged that within the term self-made, there are many who are more self-made than others. Chadwick Boseman is going from Black Panther to the NYPD. He's set to star in the action thriller 17 Bridges, about a disgraced New York detective who gets a chance at redemption amid the hunt for a cop killer. Filming is scheduled to begin in September.
I don't talk a lot at school, but if people talk to me and stuff, they'd find out that I'm like really funny and cool and talkative.
By the way, I like your shirt a lot. It's like so cool. What?
The top-rated movie opening this weekend is 8th Grade, starring Elsie Fisher as a girl just trying to get through the last week of middle school. The film, written and directed by Bo Burnham, debuts in limited release with a Rotten Tomatoes score of 98%. That's an A at any school. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
All right, gotta go see that one.
I know, right? Looks good.
Man, what a rating there. 5:47 this morning.
Coming up, your top stories of the day.
First, though, Apple is making major changes to its MacBook Pro line.
ABC's Lindsay Davis and Kenneth Gibson have all that in today's Tech Bites.
In today's Tech Bites, Apple's new MacBook Pro computers.
The company is rolling out a new line of MacBook Pros that promise to be brighter and up to 70% faster. The most tricked out model can cost more than $6,000. And there is fresh evidence that the personal computer is not dead yet.
A new report shows PC sales grew nearly 1.5% worldwide over the last 3 months. That's the industry's first quarter of growth in 6 years. And this is the latest entry in the race to develop a flying car. Backfly is actually more of a personal flying vehicle since it actually doesn't have any wheels.
Instead, it has tandem wings and 8 rotors. It can take off and land vertically, and it's all electric. The company hopes to start sales next year.
All right, you first, and then I'll see how it works out.
Yeah, me first, right? Okay, those are your Tech Bites.
Have a good day.
Local news that matters on Local 22 News.
5:51 on your Friday. Good morning. I'm Megan Carpenter.
And I'm Paul Manjari. Here are your top stories of the day. As the nurses' strike continues, the replacements are filling in, and so is uncertainty among patients.
Ashley Dustin's 9-year-old daughter, Clara, has been in the pediatric intensive care unit since June 25th. The family came all the way from Brushton, New York for UVM care. Since day one, she's had the same nurses at her every move. Now there's not a familiar face to be seen. Ashley Dustin says she's become nervous about her daughter's care now that the nurses are on strike.
This has been a very traumatic event for her, causing a lot of anxiety, so having new people doesn't help. So it was stressful. It added a lot more stress to what we've already been through.
Dustin says without these nurses' care, she doesn't know if her daughter would have made it to where she is now. She says she hopes the nurses get what they're asking for. Well, after a 3 million gallon of storm and wastewater has been released into Lake Champlain, officials are investigating what went wrong at the treatment facility in Burlington, also if staffing was an issue.
Officials also clarified what happened during the storm on Tuesday night. Chapin Spencer, Department of Public Works Director, says this plant was designed to run without a staff. He had never questioned the dependability of the plant until these spills. Spencer now realized the plant is reaching the end of its life and will begin creating a plan to prevent these releases from happening again.
As a result of this failure, we are going to further expand our staffing during rain events than what we had previously done with the valve failure a couple weeks ago.
The test results have come back below the EPA standard for E. coli, and the warning signs at the affected locations will be removed. For your local election headquarters, Democratic candidate for Vermont Governor Brenda Siegel released her plan to combat the opioid epidemic. The main pillars include reducing harm, treatment on demand, recovery and prevention, dual diagnosis support, and criminal justice reform. Siegel said both her nephew and brother died from a heroin overdose, giving her a first-hand look at this crisis.
I watched the system fail him time and time again. When he was young in treatment for mental illness and was abused there. When he sought treatment at Maple Leaf and they closed without warning and without placing their patients where they could continue their treatment. With the lack of harm reduction and adequate treatment throughout the state. And finally, within the criminal justice system.
Siegel also said Vermont should not be patting itself on the back for a slowed increase in heroin-related deaths, saying it is time to lead with love and compassion rather than stigma and shame.
Your final weather forecast is after the break. Stick around.
You're watching Local 22 News this morning. Local news that matters to Northern New York, Vermont, and New Hampshire. You're watching Local 22 News this morning. Local news that matters.
Good morning. It is 5:56, and Amanda is here with another check of that forecast. It is dry out there.
It is, yeah. Dry day, a sunny day, perfect day to do some hiking, maybe head to the lake. Got your recreation forecast. Let's take you to the mountain summits first, where it'll be in the mid-70s and abnormally calm across our summits and peaks today. We're going to cruise our way to the mid-80s in valley spots, so maybe you can seek some heat relief by heading up. Tomorrow, those summits will be in and out of the clouds with a couple of showers, possibly an isolated thunderstorm, especially over the Adirondacks, but it's really a slim chance both days to hear some rumbles of thunder. It is both days, though, so we may get one storm that bubbles up in heat and humidity on Sunday. Sunday is a hot one for you. All right, to the lake we go next. Today should be pretty calm on the waters because of that light wind. Makes sense. Tomorrow with the showers, a little choppier. South breeze at about 10 to 20 knots. That should shift to the west late in the afternoon and evening, allowing those waves to drop from about 2 to 4 feet down to 1 to 3 feet. But keep in mind, any one of those showers that do pop up, they will most likely be lighter, but they could still reduce your visibility, so we want to be wary of that. Water temperature at the Burlington Gauge is 68 degrees. Lake level down to 95 feet. It has dropped about 5 feet since May. A normal drop during the course of the summer is about 2 to 3 feet. Part of that has to do with the lack of rain and how dry it is, but the other side of that is we started so wet and abnormally high with a 100-foot lake level.
Wow.
Wow. Interesting, huh? Learned something
Yeah, I know,
every day
right?
from this girl.
Always.
You're welcome. We have another hour here on Local 22 News. Stick with us.
Follow Local